In part 10 of our series on learning to play Osprey games Zona Alpha, we are going to discuss setting up games of Zona Alpha. In games of Zona Alpha, there are 6 variables that go into setting the difficulty level of the game. When you start a game, you and your opponent can tinker with these 6 settings to get the kind of game that you want. When setting the balance between rival crews in games of Zona Alpha, there is no point system for the level of experience of your model, nor the weapons and equipment that they carry. Instead, the game uses what it calls kobrost, or medal, which in game terms translates as the total number of actions all of the models in your crew can take in a single round. So before, in one of the previous videos, we discussed the difference in number of actions that a veteran, experienced, hardened, and rookie character can take, and so you add up all those actions. Now, normal games are seen at 12 actions, but you can actually set this at 10 or 16 or 20, whatever you feel like doing and how much time you want to put into playing the game. For example, let's say we've set our kobrost to 12. One way to play that at the extreme is to pick a leader and give him 3 veteran comrades there, and this would give us 12 kobrost, so 3 times 4. Now another option, if you want to go to the extreme, is have your leader at 3 kobrost, and then say everyone else on his team are rookies. This would also be 12 kobrost. Now, a standard game of 12, those are the 2 extremes. You'll find very quickly that running an all-elite team or running a horde team has its disadvantages when you start playing long games, when you start going past round 2. In games of Zona Alpha, there are 3 threat levels, 1, 2, and 3. 1 being the lowest, 3 being the highest, and this represents threat level 1 zones are near the boundary, and threat level 3 are like at the heart of the zone. So it feeds into that narrative. Now the rule of thumb is the greater the threat level, the greater the salvage, but also the more dangerous the zone hostiles are, and more dangerous the very environment is. So this is something when you start a game, the crew leaders can always choose what the threat level is going to be in that game, but if you're playing a campaign, this will affect your return on your investment or how quickly you can retire. The thing you need to do when deciding how your game of Zona Alpha is going to turn out is decide the physical boundaries and the amount of terrain that you're going to have in the gaming area. So standard games are considered 3x3 or 4x4, but you can also go to 6x4 or whatever rectangular, square, circular shape you want. Doesn't really matter. No one's going to check your math on this one. Now, a bigger issue is going to be how much terrain do you want to populate on your board. 25% coverage, 80% coverage, open rural land, or city limits. This really affects the line of fire and how quickly you can move, which will feed into set your turn limits. Games of Zona Alpha have turn limits, and this is to create a kind of tension to get the game moving. There's no sitting down in a corner of the board and just sniping at each other and whoever comes out first loses. The idea is like this motivates the crews to get out, hit the objectives, and complete the missions, whatever they are. Now, narratively, you can always say that there's a recon flyover by the military, by an enforcement group, you got to get in, get out. There's a herd of zombies coming down. You really have to go to the bathroom and there's no place around, so you got to get out. Now, the reason turn limits are important is the standard turn limit is 4 turns plus D3. So it creates this variableness in the games, and that 4 plus D3 is tied to the 3x3 and the 4x4 boards. If you want a bigger board, it's recommended you go to 6 plus D3, just because it's going to take your models longer to cross that distance of space. And that's why setting your gaming area and your turn limits is a very linked process. A mission objective in a game of Zona Alpha is the main reason for the narrative story behind the scenario you're playing with your opponent. Now, this is something as simple as escorting a scientist, reaching a certain spot and blowing it up. It actually can be multiple linked objectives. So say getting some car keys and then getting to a truck so you can get off the board before a herd of zombies comes through. Something like that. Now this is where the majority of the resources can be won in that scenario. So if you're playing a campaign, you want to head for the mission objective, clear it, get the most salvage, and in the long term, be able to achieve retirement. Zone hotspots are different from mission objectives. Yes, they're physically represented on the board, but they're side hustles, not the main objective of the mission, which means you can go to a hotspot, crack it open, get the salvage, beat the bad guys, and get points. Their primary purpose to the game is if you're playing a campaign and someone's obviously going to take the main mission objective, these are side objectives to allow you to keep accruing salvage to prevent runaway campaigns. So you don't want one strong team to just barge through every scenario and keep getting more and more salvage and getting more powerful and thereby just running away with all the scenarios. Hotspots allow you side trips to kind of try to play the tables and get the salvage you need to rise up quicker and hit harder. Now, the number of hotspots on the battlefield is determined by the threat level of the area. So you take the threat level multiplied by 2, and that's the number of hotspots you have. So threat level 1 areas will have 2 hotspots, threat level 2 areas will have 4 hotspots, and threat level 3 will have 6 hotspots. And you should distribute them evenly throughout the board. Thank you for joining us at Miniature Wargaming Labs, and in the next episode, we'll discuss how to trigger and clear mission objectives and hotspots, and how to deal with zone hostiles. We'll see you next time.